Good. So if it's gonna work where I don't have no ID number,
It's not on there.
I bet it's 1291.
Good evening, everyone. It is just 6:15. My
Can
name
you
is
hear that,
Mark
Ro?
Witherwax. I'm the chair of the committee. We do not have a quorum yet, so we're going to roll another 5 minutes or so and see who shows up. But good evening. Welcome to our final meeting of the 2022-2023 Community Board 8 year. So sit back and relax.
I think you got it.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to add you to the call.
Are you looking at it?
Roy.
Yeah.
Okay, you on the call?
Mm-hmm.
Hope they hadn't started yet.
Wait and see if anybody gonna show.
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. You still there, Roy?
Mm-hmm. I was hearing it in the beginning.
Okay. Well,
They said it's waiting on other people to come.
mm-hmm.
All right, it is 6:20. I want to thank everyone for their patience. It is the June meeting of the Community Board 8 Environment, Sanitation, and Transportation Subcommittee. My name is Robert Witherwax. I am the chair of this committee. I'm joined by Mark Thurton, the co-chair of this committee. I still do not think we have a quorum due to our esoteric voting regulations for community board meetings. So we need to wait just for one or two more heads to pop in before we can actually get down to business. But I just wanted to welcome everyone and not let dead air take the lead. This may be also our last virtual meeting ever, because the mayor did not extend the COVID era order suspending the open meetings law, which mandates that community boards and other such bodies meet in person. So the non-renewal of the suspension equates to business as usual pre-2020. So probably come September, when community boards start meeting again, we're going to be doing this, and we're all going to look a whole lot bigger to each other, because we're going to be in person and seeing all, anywhere from 4 foot whatever to 7 foot whatever that we may be, if we all stand up and get out of our little 2-inch boxes. So that's something to look forward to. I would, again, still don't think we have a quorum. We have a couple pieces of business for tonight, and I know there's probably some people who are here for those items. So just temporarily, if you could unmute and speak if you are here to speak on the co-naming applications for James Caldwell.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Saunders here for James Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Anyone else here for Mr. Caldwell?
Can you hear me, Mr. Witherwax?
Yes, I can. Who's this?
This is Connie Lessold. Yes, I certainly would want to speak for Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Ms. Lessold. Welcome. Anybody else
Thank
for
you.
Mr. Caldwell? Great. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on the behalf of the co-naming application for Mr. Robert Matthews?
Brian Saunders for Robert Matthews also as well.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. And I see Ms. Wiltshire raised her hand.
Yeah, it says, I'm sorry, yes, his son Derek Matthews is also attended, listening in.
Derek Matthews, thank you for joining us, sir. All
And
right.
I would also like to speak for Mr. Matthews, Mr. Witherwax. It's Connie.
Thank you, Connie. I would be pleased to do so. Call on everyone. As the bodies trickle in,
I am
give me
here.
a
I'm on the
moment.
phone speaking for Robert Matthews.
Thank you. And who's this?
My name is Brenda Matthews. I am his sister. And also his brother, Roy Matthews, is on the phone.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews and Mr. Matthews. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, we need to get, I think, One more head in the room, and then we'll have a quorum, and we can start the official portion of the evening. But rather than let everyone sort of sit and stew, again, I wanted to welcome everyone. And just doing a little bit of housekeeping, we have a couple of our members are out this evening, so we've got a lot of excused absences. And I just want to see one thing here. Are either Miss Jordan here, Jennifer, or Zuzima? All right. For the purposes of, give me one moment. Call the roll. I'm going to call the roll of people who are on this committee. You may not have a voting right for this evening due to attendance, but I'm going to call your name anyway if I consider you a member of the committee. And then when we vote, we'll explain the difference. Alan Gerber.
Present.
Thank you. Karen Gray.
Present.
Thank you. Oh, I didn't start at the top of the alphabet. Michael Francoeur.
No worries. Hey, everybody.
Thank you. Saskia Hagens. Dolores Hutchinson.
Here. Present.
Thank you. Colin Jakubczyk. See Colin, so I'll count him present. Jennifer Jordan. Zuzima Jordan. Peter Crashes is asked to be excused. Francis Langley.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bobby Lapointe.
Here.
Thank you. Lisa Maldonado is asked to be excused. William Meehan is asked to be excused. Fiora Ortiz Joyner.
Present.
Thank you. Celeste Stern.
Present.
Thank you. Carrie Tan. Mark Thurton.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ethel Tyus is asked to be excused. Robert Witherwax is here. And Deborah Young has asked to be excused. So not so bad when you count out the excused. And I think—
I'm sorry, Mr. Witherwax. I'm here. I think my mic wasn't working.
Was that Mr. Jakubczyk?
Yes.
I got you.
Great. Thanks.
I was presuming there weren't two Colin Jakubczyks who would by chance be on this Zoom.
Great. Thanks.
No problem. And I want to welcome those of you who've turned out to speak on the co-naming applications. Our two items up for vote tonight are co-namings for the corner of Washington and Dean in honor of James Caldwell, and the corner of Lincoln and Ralph in honor of Robert Matthews. I do see some other faces on the call, some familiar faces and some unfamiliar faces. Who would like to— anyone who I haven't called as a member of the committee but want to speak on anything tonight, please let me know. Just unmute and tell me what you're here for.
Hi, my name is Tammy. I'm here to speak on behalf of James Caldwell Street Unit.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Witherwax. This is David Christini. Nice to see you and the committee. I'm curious to find out the committee's role with regard to recommending positioning of speed cameras. And I specifically wanted to discuss the possibility of the committee advocating for cameras on Flatbush Avenue, even though it might be at the edge of— I don't know if it might be at the edge of the CBA, but a particular segment from Grand Army Plaza to Pacific Street, which in my view is a real speedway.
All right, David, if you don't mind sitting a little bit, we can circle back around to that. But let's dive into the agenda. Mr. Saunders, are you prepared to be our leadoff hitter tonight? And I'll give you your choice of batter, Mr. Caldwell or Mr. Matthews.
Oh, good evening. I want to start off with Mr. Robert Matthews, since we have his family on first, and I'll let them. I had a chance to speak to his son, and I'll let his son or his sister speak first as well. Then I'll follow up. So,
Right, Derek, take it away.
Derek Matthews, are you on? Well, I guess I'll that's the time. The reason for the naming of Mr. Matthews was for the Conan of the street. Mr. Matthews was a pillar of the neighborhood. He was a chair of the Community Board 8 for many years. He served the community well, as he's been a mentor of most of us, and as you, Mr. Witherwax, as well. He kind of the foundation of the community board, and with that, his untimely death and his service to the community, I feel fit that that his corner of Ralph and Lincoln be named in his honor, as much as he's done for this community.
Yeah, no, I take the chair's prerogative to say that I've been on this board for 18 years. Mr. Matthews was the chair when I joined, and man, he set a great example for how to run a meeting, how to work together as a community, and sad when we lost him, but I can't support this strongly enough. I'll said my piece. I'm happy to hand it off. Does anyone else want to speak to Mr. Matthews?
Hi, my name is Ingrid Wilshire. I only know Mr. Matthew like in the last, let's say, 12 years, and he helped me in a lot of ways, and I did not realize the magnitude of what this man was doing for the community until one day I was standing by the bus stop and I heard people passing by and saying, "Oh, that's Mr. Matthews' spot. He does this and he does that." So it made me start to investigate. And I happened to go to his office and sitting down, talking with him, and then connecting with people in the neighborhood. He seemed like such a simple man, but his ultimate goal was always to help people, to extend to people whatever resources that is out there, how to go forward. So when I saw the note for the renaming, I am like 100%, because he really has done a lot for the community in this area here, because I live right on Ralph and Lincoln, and he has done a lot for the people in the neighborhood. So my vote is like yes.
Thank you, Ms. Wilshire. Ms. Leshold, did you want to say a few words?
Yes, I certainly do. I served with Mr. Matthews on the community board when I was chairman of the Parks Committee way back in the 70s and maybe in the 80s. And to the present, I'm concerned with community boards, parks, and transportation committees. And I suggested Mr. Matthews to be chairperson of the Parks Committee when I resigned from that post and took over transportation. And he did a wonderful job, and he was an ideal person for that. He cared a lot about children and recreation and ran all these programs that benefited them, which I hear in the voices of some of the people that speak makes me almost cry. He cared a lot about St. John's Community Center, and I didn't always agree with him on everything, but he definitely cared about people of all economic backgrounds and was very concerned about homeless people and the environment. He built a garden next door to one of the sites for homeless families, and that garden did a lot of very valuable programming, particularly when we were trying to save community gardens. So he was a wonderful person for his end of Community Board 8, but he cared about the whole district. Before him, the Community Board office was always way down in the western part of the district where I lived. And some folks thought that people only cared about that end. But he did care about everything. Eastern Parkway, and at that time, Lincoln Terrace Park came under Community Board 8. He really cared, and that put him in a position to become the chair because he really had contributed and he had really he had done really great things to improve people's lives. So I'm very glad that his name is up for the street signage, and I wish he was still alive because right now we're going to be, working on issues concerning Eastern Parkway and the malls and the trees and the transportation, and he would be right on it as long as he was alive. He tried to support whatever people were trying to do. So I congratulate you for keeping the B-71 bus on the list of things, which we will certainly be working with on the Eastern Parkway Coalition. But people all along the district owe him a great debt, and I'm sure that a lot of us will want to come out when that naming is done, which I'm sure will happen. If anybody deserves it in Board 8, I think he does.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else want to speak to Mr. Matthews?
Hi, Tammy again. I would like to speak on behalf of Mr. Matthews. I met him when I became trying to become the Block Association president. Didn't know much, but he was very patient and he walked me through everything. And one thing that stands out about him is that he didn't mind teaching, and he didn't mind, like putting you in a position to receive the baton that he was, that he had. So I just wanted to say, I remember him with when Amy Watkins got killed and the candlelight visual, and just to see him go through the community, even as he labored to walk, whatever. I love to hear him speak. The way that he focuses, it was so encouraging, and I just want, this is a really good honor for him, and he really truly deserved it. Thank you.
Yeah, he had I'd love to hear him speak too. He had a great voice, deep, rumbling. Yeah, just came from way down. He meant it. That reminds me of something. I just want to make sure everyone understands on this call, we are being live broadcast out on, I forget what media, but everything is being recorded. So please, no unnecessarily identifying characteristics. Don't give out your email address or your phone number, and don't say anything that you wouldn't want to be recorded on the internet for posterity. So luckily, I think it's good to say the things we've just said, to have them recorded on the internet for posterity. So there's pluses and minuses, but I just wanted to make that note. Anyone else on the topic of Mr. Matthews' co-naming of Lincoln and Ralph? And if no one else wants to speak, would anyone like to make a motion on the subject?
Mark Thurton, make a motion to accept this application.
Mr. Thurton, do I have a second?
I second it. Can I?
Ms. Gray, thank you very much for the second. Any questions on the motion to co-name the street corner of Ralph Avenue and Lincoln Place for Mr. Robert Matthews? Hearing none, I will call the roll in proper alphabetical order. Michael Francoeur.
Yep, I'm a yes.
Thank you. Karen Gray. Ms. Gray. I'm back around to you. Dolores Hutchinson.
Yes, it's a yes. This is Karen.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Karen. And Ms. Hutchinson, thank you. Colin Jakubczyk.
Yes.
Thank you. Francis Langley.
Yes.
Thank you. Bobby Lapointe. Yes. Thank you. Fiora Ortiz Joyner.
Yes.
Thank you. Celeste Stern.
Yes.
Thank you. Mark Thurton.
Yes.
Thank you. And Robert Witherwax. Yes, the motion passes. 9 in favor. We will forward this to, well, I guess the board office will discuss. Since we are literally the last meeting of the board year, we usually send action items that we pass at these committee meetings to the next board meeting, but that won't be until September. So we'll figure out whether this is going straight to the city council or whether this is going to the full board for ratification at a later time. But the motion passed the EST committee. Congratulations to the family of Mr. Matthews, and thank you all for being here tonight. May his memory be of comfort to you. Now, Mr. Saunders, if you want to take it up again for Mr. James Caldwell.
Yes, I will. This one's a kind of a touching one for me also as well. I'm gonna give him his. Only thing is, I want to give his correct title will be James E. Caldwell. And Mr. Caldwell was also a pillar of this community. He did a lot for people in this community, the Black and Brown community. He was a man of great integrity. He did more for others than for himself. He served his community well. He helped foster relationships with police and the community, and also other things he did. And just like Mr. Matthews, Mr. Caldwell served his community well. It's the least we could do for these two individuals and for Mr. Caldwell to serve, just to show our gratitude and thanks for people who gave them themselves to this community. And that's what I can say right now without getting emotional myself.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Would anyone else like to speak on Mr. Caldwell? Taking chair's prerogative. I didn't know Mr. Caldwell nearly well as I knew Mr. Matthews. And he was a very familiar presence at every community board meeting. He'd come in and stand toward the back. But I knew enough people who knew him directly to know that he was a force for, again, joining our community together and bringing us together in times of need, especially. So I'll hand the floor over to anyone who wants to speak about Mr. Caldwell.
Hi, this is Tammy.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi. Mr. Caldwell was a giant in the community, and losing him was a huge loss to the community. He was one of the hardest working people in the community throughout. He was a veteran. He fought to ensure that the veterans had a place to come back to for medical attention, and he organized that to make sure that the Veterans Hospital was in place. His volunteer position as the president of the 77th Precinct Community Council spanned over 20 years, and he took that position far and beyond, what it was meant to be. It didn't stay beyond those walls. He was helping out with the third-party transfer. People was getting their deeds stolen. He was helping out with people who didn't have a job. He would try to connect the youth to jobs everywhere he went. He walked around with his business cards and newsletters. If he's on a cruise ship, if he's out of the country, wherever, he was promoting the community. I think just about everybody all over the world probably has a newsletter from the 73rd Precinct Community Council, because he would walk around and he would promote. And when, no matter who you were, you could be picking up bottles in the street, he would hand his business card to them and say, "Give me a call." That's what community is made of. And he has big shoes to fill. And I just want to say that this is an honor for him. He worked hard for this. And I'm just saying, consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Anybody else? No.
I just want to say I want to say one more thing also. He was a person that faced a lot of trials and tribulations, and also he's one of the reasons why I guess the Barclays Center is where it is right now. When everyone said no, he was the first person to say yes. And I mean, it was just a giant, and it was nothing he said no to unless that served the community and helped everyone. So thank you for this presenting this, and looking forward for it to pass.
Mr. Saunders, and yeah, when we think of James Caldwell, we do think of Barclays Center and vice versa. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to accept the co-naming application for James E. Caldwell, the Ortiz Joyner.
Thank you. For the corner of Dean and Washington Avenue, I should have mentioned. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz Joyner. Anybody second?
I second.
Before you,
Langley.
I want to say something about James Caldwell. This is Connie Lessold. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right.
Yes.
I think it's important because it hasn't been said. If I were saying the same thing everybody else was saying, I wouldn't be saying it. I definitely disagreed with Mr. Caldwell over Barclays. But so it means something that I'm speaking for a street naming for him. It certainly has nothing to do with Barclays. Mr. Caldwell was out there on the streets in a major way for people who had housing problems. He was out there for tenants and homeowners, not just one or the other. He answered calls in the middle of the night from tenants, elderly seniors. Those were the people he was most concerned about. And he would go to the house and help them to resolve whatever problem it was, whether it was electrical problem or whatever it was. And with homeowners, he once took a whole bus load full of people down to the Supreme Court in Brooklyn to picket the court over the loss of the senior citizens losing their housing. He was in favor of, at the meetings, which is very important, allowing everyone to speak. He did not censor the speakers at the meetings. And he was a member of the Committee of 100 to make the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens free again, and allowed me and others to speak at the meetings about that, at the police meetings. He was very concerned about veterans, and he was very concerned about mental health. He once did a program with me on Manhattan Television Network and regarding veterans' mental health, and it was a very moving program because he talked about himself and his own experience in leaving the military and the difficulties that veterans find in re-entering civilian life. He did not allow anything to stop him from what he wanted to do. Some of you may remember that the poor guy suffered from an arson attack in the building that he lived in. And his mother was actually, somewhat injured by that. And the woman who was responsible had a serious mental health problem herself and lived there. And he, of course, was opposed to this and did what he had to do. But he did not, he was not vicious in any way and tried to deal with this woman. He and Letitia James both, who had been on opposite sides of Barclays, both of them were very concerned about this woman and her mental health and did what they could to help her. This was incredible to me, who had worked on the fire committee forever and was really angry about this. At any rate, I just wanted to make sure that people really understood the full range of his concerns, and particularly how seniors cared about him. So thank you very much for letting me participate, Mr. Withwax.
Thank you, Ms. Lissold. The motion on the floor is to support the co-naming of the corner of Dean and Washington in favor of Mr. James E. Caldwell. Motion made by Fiora Ortiz Joyner, seconded by Ms. Frances Langley. I will now call the roll. Michael Francoeur.
I'm a yes.
Thank you. Karen Gray.
Yes.
Thank you. Dolores Hutchinson.
Yes.
Thank you. Colin Jakubczyk.
Yes.
Thank you. Frances Langley.
Yes.
Thank you. Bobby Lapointe.
Yes.
Thank you. Fiora Ortiz Joyner.
Yes.
Thank you. Celeste Stern.
Thank you to the speakers, and it's a yes.
Thank you, Ms. Stern. Mark Thurton.
Yes to Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Thurton. Robert Witherwax. Yes. The motion again is unanimous. And again, I don't quite know where its next stop is, but hopefully it will be on a street post sometime soon before the year is out. But again, thank you to all the speakers who came out for those two items. And thank you very much for everyone who's got a memory for this community. That's why we put names on these street posts, right? To keep these people alive in our memory and to prompt the question from the newcomers. I wonder who that was. And maybe they can engage with someone who's been around a while and learn the story. But thank you very much. Moving on, a few housekeeping items. One, I left all my papers at the office, so I had a few notes of things I wanted to discuss tonight. I think we're all getting off easy that I don't have them in front of me. Two, I want to acknowledge a few of our new and or newer board members and committee members. Michael Francoeur has been on for a year now, but I want to welcome Dolores Hutchinson, who earned her way on. So thank you. Welcome, Ms. Hutchinson. Mr. Jakubczyk is also relatively new, but our newest committee member is Ms. Hutchinson, and Mr. Lapointe. Bobby Lapointe is a new appointed board member to Community Board 8, and lucky us, he seems to have chosen this committee. We'll see if that lasts longer than one meeting. But thank you, Mr. Lapointe, and thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Welcome to the voting membership. So the astute of you may have realized that when I called the roll, I called a few more names than when I was calling the votes. That's because we have sort of, I don't want to say it's a two-tiered system, but we have people who are members of the committee, and we reset that every year and keep people in good stead. It resets over the summer. And then we have an activity quotient, if you will. If you have attended 3 out of the trailing 6 meetings, you will be in, or more, you will be in good standing to vote at any given meeting. But there are certain people who are members of the committee and receive all of the missives, and for whatever reasons or not, just don't attend, and the vote sort of goes dormant. But then they can attend again and get their vote on for the next meeting. So that's what happened to some of those names. But I want to thank everyone for their time. So before I turn to Mr. Christini and some other people here, just as a bit of a valedictory, it's been a great year. We've had a very active year on the EST committee. And again, we are in the Environment, Sanitation, and Transportation Committee. And even though in the latter half, it really felt like we were dealing almost exclusively with transportation issues, we've had, I think, an outsized impact this year on some of the sanitation issues in our community, some of which we've called for and some of which we welcome, but they were unexpected, and also on some of the environmental issues. Most recently, we moved on the items regarding the zoning text amendment changes to help green New York and bring about carbon neutrality. We've also had, this is the year where Community Board 8 got the sanitation compost bins, and we are going to, this fall, get the brown bins for household waste. So those things are coming up. We also had a lot to say, though, about transportation issues, and especially about the bus rerouting system. And I want to thank everyone who participated in this in December, January, February, and March to solicit community opinion, take it in, synthesize it into a statement that we then sent off to New York City Transit. As far as we know, New York City Transit is refining and redesigning the proposal that they rolled out in November of last year. And sometime come this fall, we'll hear from them again with a refinement on that proposal. And we'll go through it all over again. We'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb. We'll solicit community opinion. We'll synthesize it together, and we will make a statement to the powers that be about what we think about the proposed changes. The changes are coming. I don't think anyone's going to bet that the bus route is not going to get redesigned substantially, but our important role is to have our voice heard on that. So looking forward to September and onward with that. One of the things we traditionally do in the last meeting of the year is look back at the goals that we set the previous spring. So I'm going to share my screen for a moment. Hopefully everyone can see this. This is the matrix that we put together around this time last year for what we wanted to accomplish in the intervening year. So as you see, if you go across the top, there's sort of a category. With the subcommittee, there's an item, there's a category, and then there's these 4 buckets: budget request, service enhancement, policy change, and community engagement opportunity. Then as you go down, it's what of the 4 elements of the committee did it fit in? Was it an environmental question? Was it a sanitation question? Was it a streets question? Was it a transit question? And you can see that we had these in the category column. We talked about air traffic noise. We talked about rats and pest control, sewers and catch basins, noise cameras for environment, sanitation. We talked about composting, containerized waste and public waste bins. For streets, we talked about Atlantic Avenue, residential parking permits, alternate side parking and enforcement. And then for transit, we talked about the bus map, bus service improvements, and bus rapid transit. And then as you move to the right, there were things that we thought we might do on those. Well, reality intrudes, and we got to some of them and we didn't get to some of them. And there were other things that we spent time on that we didn't expect to. Nowhere on this rubric is open streets, for example. But these or co-namings, but they came to the committee and we dealt with them. But I just want to point out a few things. Air traffic noise, the Stop the Chop movement, we've sent letters to support over the last couple of years, and maybe it's time for another one. Rats and pest control, Prospect Heights or Community Board 8. I'm not sure of the geographic boundaries, but the rat mitigation zone law passed, and Prospect Heights is one of the 4. I shouldn't say that. It's called Prospect Heights, but the map suggests that it might be a hybrid between Prospect Heights and Crown Heights. Some lump there is going to be included in the rat mitigation zone, which is a zone where there will be an extra attention made to, guess what, mitigating the issues of rats. We sent, working with the board office, we sent some sort of spot checks to DEP about the sewers and catch basins that we felt needed to be addressed. I don't think we did much about noise cameras. Composting was a big one, and we sent a letter to the Department of Sanitation, but almost immediately upon writing the letter, we got those surprise sanitation compost bins. So we amended the letter to say, look, can you tell us more about it? We're still waiting for sanitation to speak back about it. Containerized waste, those of you who follow these things know that the city, Department of Sanitation wants to wholesale redesign its residential sanitation pickup system and is really looking into containerization. So instead of every building having its own bins or its own spot on the sidewalk, blocks would have a dedicated zone on the sidewalk or in the street where all the buildings would put their waste and recycling. And it would make for a more efficient pickup. It would make for more concentrated use of space and a better use perhaps of public space. There's a pilot program that's going on in, I want to say, Hamilton Heights, Harlem. It may be expanded, and there is some thought that Community Board 8 might be part of that. Just skipping on down Atlantic Avenue, we're all aware of the AIM-UP plan, the Atlantic Avenue mixed-use plan that's going on right now under the aegis of Councilmember Hudson and Department of City Planning at the borough level. We've been passively involved in that because there's a lot of overlap. Several of our members who aren't here tonight are there tonight. So we've been engaged and having our voice heard on that. And then I already alluded to the great work this committee did on the buses. What I would like from the committee members, doesn't have to be now, but over the next couple of weeks before we all go into our summer coma, email me, email the committee, email us about thoughts that you might like to, projects you might like to attack for the next year along these lines. What budget requests might we want to make? What service enhancement requests might we want to make? What policy changes might we want to request? And what opportunities for community engagement, right? We had notions of public forums, and we did a big one for the bus map redesign. But we didn't do, and we're participating in the Atlantic Avenue one, but there's other opportunities that we could have to invite the public in and engage them on these issues. So please, again, email the board office, email me, email the whole group, your thoughts on what you think this committee wants this spreadsheet to look like for 2023, 2024. So not going to do it tonight because I didn't get these thoughts out to you in advance of the meeting, but please think about that, and I'll send a reminder email out in a week or so. So enough of my spiel. I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to ask David Christini, you said you had some questions about speed cameras. Do you have a particular?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Witherwax. Yeah, my question, sort of broad question, was what role this committee might have in advocating for placement of speed cameras, and then more specifically to advocate for one or more cameras on Flatbush Avenue, in particular the segment between Grand Army Plaza and Pacific Street is a real speedway. It's cars come around Grand Army Plaza going towards Manhattan, and if they can, which is not during rush hour, of course, but it is during other times, they fly. They go certainly 40 miles per hour. Not all cars, but many cars. And it gets more dangerous the later it gets. If you go out there 1 a.m., 2 a.m., at times when, it can be extremely dangerous. So I would advocate for a speed camera somewhere along that stretch. Miss George chatted me and gave me, I know there's some from her, thank you, some avenues to, asked me to send an email to the district office as well as submitting a request directly to the DOT on their website. I will do both. She also asked if there's a specific intersection. I'm not sure. It could be anywhere on that stretch, but somewhere near 7th Avenue or St. Mark's might be a good spot, somewhere kind of middle of the stretch. But so that's what I came to point out, Mr. Witherwax. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee, and thank you all for everything you're doing on behalf of the community.
No, thank you. The two things I can add to that, and again, you probably know this already based on your research, but my understanding is there's a cap on the number of speed cameras that New York City can install on all the streets, and that there may be a correlation between the placement and school zones, though I think that used to be iron, and I think that's gotten a little more expansive as the program has related. Now any sort of traffic priority corridor can get them, and certainly I'd say Flatbush is a traffic priority corridor. Yeah, I think I speak for the committee by saying, look, we support safety and enforcement of the laws. You can design a street within an inch of its life, but if you don't enforce the usage, you've wasted a lot of money. So enforcement is a big priority here. And that could be something, hint, 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 that we add to the spreadsheet for next year. I will also say that there is a proposal there's a couple of proposals out there that may have some upstream and downstream impact on what you're observing. One is that bus rapid transit may be coming to Flatbush Avenue. The B41 may get a equivalent of the B44, B46, the sort of SBS model. So we have participated, the community board has participated in at least a couple of sort of brainstorming, workshopping questions about that. not only CB8, but CBs 2, 6, 8, 9, 14 on down the line. So that would certainly have some elements of speed control as well. And then, of course, the whole Grand Army Plaza question. And this is going to be a topic that this committee is going to be engaged in probably come next spring. Department of Transportation is rethinking Grand Army Plaza and is going to be coming forward, as I should say, Department of Design and Construction, DDC. It's a DDC project, which for those of you who don't know, is a city agency, and where multiple city agencies are involved, they kind of take the lead. So they're looking at ways to reconfigure Grand Army Plaza, which will, of course, have some impact on the ability to speed on Flatbush Avenue, north and south of Grand Army Plaza. But that, again, is years in the future. So I think a speed camera in the short term is something this committee could get behind. So, Mr. Christini, why don't you follow up with what Ms. George suggested you do and keep us posted. And if you need at any point in time this committee to speak out in support, come back to us.
Will do, and thank you.
A lot of moving pieces. Who's that?
It's this Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
Hey, on that list, I mean, there was some safety issues that we've been speaking about for years now. That's not on the list. We have this Eastern Parkway over by Buffalo. They did some work over there. However, the situation has not been totally rectified. I think they need to reevaluate that and see what can be done better for that. And also, there was a request that was made years ago, also continuously, for in between the over in Lincoln Terrace Park, from the park itself and the tennis court, for getting a light at that intersection going up the hill for the kids' safety. You know, that's been discussed for years, and nothing has come about with that. And I think that should be on the agenda. We also had issues on Utica Avenue and St. John's that was brought up 6 years ago when they put in the bike lane on St. John's, and DOT never went back to reevaluate the possibility of making it safer for the residents of that area. And really, that's really kind of discouraging, because they don't seem like Vision Zero applies to the people in that Utica Avenue area, and they have neglected that. We have this other section on Rogers Avenue, which we had two motorists killed on Rogers Avenue in between Eastern Parkway and Atlantic Avenue 2 years ago, and there's also a school crossing over there that DOT never really came back and evaluated, and that's been going on for years. And we also have this intersection, which is totally unsafe, and they've never addressed it until they started looking at the bike lane issue, which is Bedford and Atlantic Avenue. That intersection for pedestrians is extremely dangerous, and they have such a small quantity of pedestrians over there, and they have so many incidents. These are concerns that we need to put on our list and let them be aware of it, and for us to follow up and for them to be accountable for the safety of everyone in Community Board 8.
Agree 100%. I'll add a couple to that. The Eastern Parkway crosswalks between on the median on the north side of Eastern Parkway, heading out to Buffalo Avenue. That project is still ongoing. I'll second what you said about Utica Avenue and St. John's. The DOT came to us about 5-7 years ago with a proposal. It got kind of lukewarm support from the committee, and they never did anything with it. And I think it's time to take another look at that. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Bedford Avenue and Rogers thing. There was a school that has just opened on Rogers Avenue. Forgive me, I forget the cross street, St. John's or Sterling. And they're advocating for some enforcement at their at their location. And I know you and I have been on emails with them, Mark, so hopefully they'll get what they're looking for. But yeah, everything that you just mentioned should be on the spreadsheet, and we should be keeping track of it. Now, this spreadsheet is for committee goals. So if it's a city project, our committee goal is to keep on top of the city, right? Make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. It's not necessarily work for the committee, but we should all, we do have a spreadsheet as well where we keep track of these things. And it should be front of our minds, right? As the city comes in and makes improvements, we need to make sure that they're doing it in the right way. Any other comments from committee members or the community tonight?
Yes, this is Ortiz Joyner.
Yes.
And speaking about sanitation, obviously, there are folks who are not adhering to bringing out their garbage in cans at 6 and in bags at 8. And I'm particularly speaking of pre-war buildings. A perfect example is this morning. This area has garbage pickups on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. There was a plethora of garbage bags this morning at 5:30 a.m. and the rats were having a field day. And I think that if these rules are going to go into effect and these large pre-war buildings who can afford to have maintenance and do it the right way are not doing it, what can we do? Because it's just exacerbating the rat problem.
You know, personally, I think the new change, and again, for the clarity for those who are on the call, recently, I want to say in the last 2 months, Department of Sanitation changed the hours that you can put unbinned garbage out, right? If you're a homeowner, you formerly could put it out after, I think, 4 o'clock. Now, if it's not in a bin with a closed lid, it cannot go out until 8. The theory is that they were going to have a nighttime shift of sanitation workers come and pick all of those things up before midnight. So it would limit the amount of time that bags were sitting on the sidewalk and rats could go have a smorgasbord for it. But I don't think the sanitation pickup hours have rolled earlier. They are, as you observe, they're standard 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning hours now. So I don't know if there's another shoe that's going to drop on that, but there is no problem with naming and shaming, right? If you see buildings that aren't operating like this, call 311. I don't know what the fine structure is. I don't know what the penalty structure is, but build a record is what I would say. Maybe not, the little old lady down the street, but as you say, a big building that should have the budget and the know-how to not do it this way, call 311 and let the board office know.
Thank you.
My take on that.
Mr. Witherwax, this is Connie. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to support that issue brought up of the speed camera on Flatbush Avenue. I now live in Park Slope on Park Place, and I cross Flatbush Avenue almost daily. And in that area where you're talking about a speed camera, and it is very much needed. And it's not just because of the cars. The bicycles, the electric bicycles and the motorcycles have no respect, a lot of them, for a stoplight. And it is extremely dangerous. I walk with a walker now, and I go with the red light, and I was in the middle of the street the other day, and a whole crowd of motorcycles came on both sides of me. They could have easily hit me. However, I was also scared to death because I couldn't move either way, that the light would change before they got out of the way and that I'd be left at the mercy of the cars. This is not unusual, and seniors all over Brooklyn are organizing right now to do something about this motorcycle problem of people not abiding by the law and going through red lights and everything. It is extremely dangerous. You would be surprised at the statistics. You may want to ask for them if you have a senior committee on how many people have been injured by the bicycles and motorcycles, et cetera. The Department of the Aging is trying to take this up further. And I just want to support, please, getting some kind of anything you can do to reduce the speed on Flatbush Avenue. I go to Albany Center and to St. John's Community Center, and I'm over there as much as I am in Park Slope almost. So I have a stake in both neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. No, yes, that's goes back to the question
Oh, wait,
of
one other
enforcement.
thing to that, Mr. Witherwax, one other thing to that. One of the important reasons that you need that speed camera is that, you know, there is a lot of talk about registering bicycles and motorcycles and all, and having license plates, which is definitely is needed, and some politicians are working on it at very high levels. That is wonderful, but that isn't going to do us seniors much good if anybody hits us and rides on, because those right now, those registration numbers and all are too small for anybody to almost be able to read. But if there were speed cameras, they would begin to catch some of those numbers that we hope will be on all the bicycles and everything. And, you know, there would be some consequences if people get hurt in the area where the camera is. So those are issues that your committee may want to take up in the fall. But anything you can do to make it safer, it's very important, because many people are being injured and some are being killed.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lessold. Yeah, enforcement, you know, automated is better than having a cop sit there sometimes. And sometimes it's, you know, it works when it works. Any other comments, questions, new business, old business?
Yeah, I agree with the enforcement with the scooters and the bikes, especially the delivery people. I almost got run over last week. The light said I should walk, but the delivery guy coming through on the motorized scooter decided to be on the wrong side of the street and to run the light. And I've seen this quite a few times.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be some way that we can implement more safety measures with them, and for them to start honoring the traffic flows and signs. And the DOT really needs to work on that, because as I've seen strollers almost get hit. So I think it's something that's really essential. And until we start doing stuff like that, we're going to have a lot of accidents and fatalities.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Crary. Anybody else?
Yeah, Rob. As public safety chair, I got several calls for May the 23rd. They had closed off Eastern Parkway from Kingston over to New York, and no, not Kingston, almost over to Nostrand Avenue, and it was causing havoc. And that closure, that was like from 12 o'clock to about 10 p.m. And you know, there was many complaints about that. I wanted to bring that up to our transportation committee, because I'm not sure if, you know, notification was given out on that. And Eastern Parkway is a major east-west thoroughway for Brooklyn. I wanted to bring that up to our committee. And also, as public chair, we had our meeting yesterday, and the 77th precinct said that DOT is looking to close Eastern Parkway for a day from the museum all the way to Buffalo Avenue. And that's for
So that's going to be on August 26th between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m.
Have they notified us, or what's going on with that?
It's been advertised.
Publicly announced.
Yes.
It has? Okay, I wasn't aware of it. Do they have a traffic plan for that?
Probably some metal barricades, and again, it's going to be from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. So
No,
I
I'm
don't think
talking-
on a
no,
Saturday
I'm-
morning, they're anticipating it causing too much traffic disruption.
Okay.
Mr.
So-
Witherwax, do you mind? Mr. Thurton, that's actually part of a citywide initiative on that same Saturday in August to have several major corridors across the 5 boroughs shut down to traffic. It's part of Open Streets. It's to encourage people to get out of their cars, get out of motorized vehicles, get on their feet, get on a bike, and just enjoy being able to utilize the streets in a way other than as designed for vehicle movement. I don't know if you know, but our Mayor Eric Adams, has announced that he wants open streets to double by the end of his first term next year. This year, there are about 133 open streets, which is double from last year, and he wants next year to be doubled again. So this is not something that comes before the community board. These are mayoral initiatives. And so we would like to hope and assume that because they are mayoral initiatives, the mayor's office will be working closely with DOT, NYPD, FDNY, all of our essential service providers to ensure that the streets are navigable for public safety vehicles. And also that, sorry to say it, but the emphasis and focus is not on traffic management and mitigation. The emphasis and focus is on a day of car-free New York City. So it's something that they're trying to encourage all 9 million New York City residents to do, to just envision a city that is car-free.
Thank you, Ms. Neal. And for those of you who are watching, I think I've shared the screen of the announcement. So again, here's the list of locations and dates. It's successive Saturdays starting on the 29th of July, the 5th of August, the 12th of August, the 19th of August, and the 26th of August. The only one of those where Eastern Parkway is closed is the 26th of August. Eastern Parkway and Grand Concourse will both be closed to traffic that day. But the city's been doing Park Avenue in Manhattan for 3 or 4 successive weekends in August for years now. And now they're adding on a couple other boroughs to it. So everything Ms. Neal said, except it's not going to be all 5 of these every weekend. It's only going to be 1 or 2 per weekend. So, but yeah, it was announced, and if it's late enough, won't matter. About late Friday night if you don't want to watch it. There you are. Any other comments, questions, items for the committee? Great. Well, silence at this point is a good thing. I will take a motion then to adjourn for the summer, if anybody is interested in making that motion.
I move to adjourn for the summer.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz Jr. I'll make it my own second. So thank you, everyone, for a good committee year. Email me, email the board office, email the group with your ideas for what we can do next year. And we'll have some email communication over the summer and be ready to re-adjourn at the end of September, reconvene at the end of September and get rolling on more good things.